All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Network in Action speaker series. Today, we're going to be introducing Shawn Cheesman. All right, Shawn, let's go ahead and let this person in here. Shawn brings more than 30 years of hands-on leadership in small to mid-sized manufacturing businesses, ranging from 2 million to 60 million in annual revenue, and has held roles across sales, finance, operations, mergers, acquisitions, product management, quality, and general management. Over the past 2 decades, he's coached and mentored scores of entrepreneurs, guiding them to discover clarity, strengthen cash flow, and get the fun back into their work. As a certified FocalPoint business coach, Shawn applies proven tools to help owners focus on the customer, support one another, and perhaps most importantly, have a little fun along the way. When he's not empowering business leaders, Shawn and his wife explore Minnesota's charming small towns and relax at their northern lake home, coffee in hand, two yellow labs by their side, and the loons singing their in the morning mist. He even chases greatness on the pickleball court, though he admits he still needs a coach. So please join me in welcoming Shawn Cheesman as he shares his insights on the little things that make a big difference in success.
Well, thank you. That was quite the intro. I greatly appreciate that. And welcome to everybody. I'm going to kind of put my screen up here. As Daniel mentioned, I'm a business and executive coach. I'm actually fairly new to this role, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But today we're going to talk a little bit about what are the little things that can make a big difference in business success. And it's going to be pretty interactive. So don't hesitate to turn your microphones off. One of my challenges is when I've got this up on my screens, I can't see people if you're waving your hand or something like that. So Daniel's going to try and help me a little bit. But if you've got something to say, please don't hesitate to speak up, get off the microphone and speak up. Daniel, can you put that application exercise document in the chat for us?
You got it. Just hold tight.
So Daniel's going to put a document in the chat. We're going to have some little exercises as we go through the presentation today. So it'd be nice for you to open that up, have it available, because we'll put you in some small groups and you won't be able to see, my presentation and the questions I want you to answer. But that way you'll have it right in front of you. So we'll go ahead and get going then, if it's all right.
Let her rip.
Okay. So Daniel mentioned a little bit about what I do. I'm from Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. So of course I take advantage of that. My wife and I have a lake place about 2 hours north of the Twin Cities, where my favorite time is Saturday morning with a cup of coffee, sitting on the deck and listening to the loons. We are empty nesters. So right now we have two yellow labs that keep us busy. And one of the things that we like to do as a couple is to go out and visit our friends, our family, and then also to kind of see different sites. So there's a picture of me in front of the gates at Purdue University, my alma mater, with my brother and sister-in-law. The picture with the stones in the background is from Sedona, Arizona. That was an absolutely gorgeous place to go, especially in March when it was cold in Minnesota. A couple of years ago, we were fortunate to take a cruise along the Alaskan coast, and you can see a glacier in the background. Of course, we're Vikings fans. And then, of course, being in Minnesota, you have to enjoy the winter. So we go out and go to some of the large Christmas light shows around the town. So how did I get into FocalPoint coaching? I'm an engineer by education from Purdue. I spent my early years in some big companies, and I got my MBA from Minnesota. And then after I left Integris, I started working in small businesses of like 2 to 60 million in size. And as Daniel had kind of shared, I've done a little bit of everything in my life. I have really enjoyed the fact that I've had these great opportunities to be able to do anything from a quality manager to mergers and acquisitions to finance to president of businesses. So last year, I had been the president of a couple small contract manufacturing machine shops. It was a turnaround situation. I did my work for the turnaround, got done, and I decided, what do I want to do next? And that's when I really started to reflect on what have I liked the most about working in these small businesses. And really, it was about developing the people, as taking my knowledge and teaching others and really watching those people apply what I was teaching them into their jobs and then helping businesses get better. So I started to ask myself, well, how can I do more of that? Instead of just being a W-2 employee at one company, can I do more of it? And that's when I started looking, and I found business coaching. And I started this journey as a business coach last year. So I've been into it about 8 months, and I've been an NIA member since December of last year. Today, we'll talk about the little things that make a big difference in business success. We kind of have two parts to this. The first part we're going to talk about is called the Carnegie Triangle. And I want to ask folks to think about, what characteristics do you think make people successful? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to get off your mic, and this is the part that isn't going to work quite the way I want it to, but get off your mic and tell me what you think. And I'm going to type it in, and then I'll present it again so everybody can see what those things look like. So anybody speak up. What characteristics do you think make people successful?
Honesty.
Honesty.
Persistence.
Persistence.
Grit.
Grit.
Focus.
Focus. Good.
Courage.
Courage.
Consistency.
Consistency.
Goals.
Goals. Okay.
Willingness.
Dedication.
Willingness.
Resilience.
What was the last one? Resilience. Okay. More. Well, we got 30 people on the line.
Willingness to help others.
Okay.
Dedication.
All right. Other ideas. What characteristics make people successful? Think of the people that you feel are successful and what stands out about them. Anything else? Patience. That's a good one.
Personability.
Humility.
Humility, was that it?
Yeah, humility.
Yeah.
Confidence.
Confidence. Awesome.
A strong mindset.
Wrong mindset.
Sense of humor.
Humor? All right. Couple more.
Adaptability.
Okay.
Competence.
Balance for that.
Competence.
Oh, competence.
Both are good though.
We had competence already. Competence. Okay. Let me go back and share this again.
How many is that?
There we go. One of the things I always tell people when I do this is my goal is to get something on the page and don't say anything about my spelling, because if you complain about my spelling, that means that you get to do this next time. All right.
It's spelled just right.
Okay, so this is what we came up with, and I think it's a great list. So we'll go a little bit more. And as we talk about the Carnegie Triangle, let's talk a little bit about the man, Andrew Carnegie, who was a Scottish American industrialist, founder of Carnegie Steel. Eventually, that became part of U.S. Steel. And Andrew Carnegie was known to give most of his wealth away, and most of it was associated with education. So we've heard of Carnegie Hall in New York City, Carnegie Mellon University in Michigan, and then, of course, the Carnegie Foundation. So the Carnegie Triangle is really about an understanding of what make people successful. And what they found was that there are three key attributes to success: skills, attitude, and knowledge. So does this surprise anybody?
No.
Yeah, not really, if you kind of think about it. It kind of makes a lot of sense. Now, what was also interesting is that they said that some of these were more important than others. So what do you think might be some percentages? You know, I've got equilateral triangle, which says that they're all equal, but it's not. So give me some idea, like skills. What do you think that is as far as the percentage towards success?
Yeah.
What was that?
40%.
40, okay.
10%.
10, okay. What about knowledge?
10%.
10, okay. Attitude,
80.
80, okay. High percentage toward attitude, okay. Well, that's kind of interesting, because what they came back with is that 85% of success can be attributed to your attitude, and only 15% towards your skills and knowledge. So does that surprise anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing when I kind of thought about it is like, you know, you always hear people talk about, oh, you know, what school did you go to? You know, what college did you go to? Oh, did you go to an Ivy League college? And at the end of the day, it says here that really that doesn't matter. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to go to our list that we came up with. And we're going to put each one of these and tell me if these are an attitude, a skill, or a knowledge in one of those three buckets. And then Daniel's going to keep track for us of how many go into each bucket. So, honesty, attitude, skill, or knowledge. One, attitude, I think. Yep. Persistence.
Attitude.
Attitude. Yep. Grit.
Attitude again.
Attitude. Focus.
That's a skill.
Yep. Focus could be a skill, or it could be an attitude. I would probably put it as a skill. Courage.
Attitude.
Attitude. Yeah, I think attitude. Consistency.
Skill.
It could be a skill.
Skill.
Yep.
Attitude. It
Be
can
an
also be attitude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Goals.
That's the knowledge.
Attitude.
That's the knowledge.
Really?
Yeah, that's one that kind of could go across all of them. I might put goals in more of a skill or a knowledge. Willingness.
Attitude.
Attitude. Dedication.
Attitude.
Attitude, yes. Resilience. Thoughts on resilience?
Attitude.
Yeah, I probably attitude, and you might be able to say a skill, but I think it's more about attitude. Helping others.
Attitude.
I think that's an attitude. Dedication.
Attitude.
Yeah, I think it's an attitude. Patience.
Attitude.
Attitude.
The attitude could be a skill, but I think, yeah,
Skill.
towards the attitude. Personability. Probably an attitude, right?
Attitude.
Humility.
Attitude.
Yeah, that definitely an attitude. Confidence.
Attitude.
Attitude. Strong mindset.
Knowledge.
Attitude.
Knowledge, maybe. I might go more toward the attitude. Yeah. Humor.
Boom.
Unless you're a comedian, it's probably not necessarily a skill.
True. Attitude.
More of an attitude, yes. Adaptability.
That's an attitude.
Skill.
Attitude or skill, I might say maybe a little more toward the attitude. And competence.
That's skill.
Yeah.
Nice.
Class all three.
Yeah, it could be all three. I might lean a little bit more towards skill. So, Daniel, why don't you tell us how many we got in each one of those groups?
We have 17 in attitude, 2 in skills, and 1 in knowledge.
Wow. Okay, so it said about 85% of success is due to our attitude. And, we just brainstormed and we came up with most of those characteristics are really about attitude. One of the things I found most interesting when I've done this, and I've done this presentation like 6 or 7 times, is that only once did I get someone talk about education. And we didn't do it here. No one said education. No one said, oh, an Ivy League school is going to be, a key to success. But it's really about that attitude. So the other thing that the Carnegie Foundation went on to note is that, you really need that attitude to go out and acquire your knowledge and skills. And really, skills is just the application of your knowledge. So I think about, when I went to college, I learned a lot. They taught me how, to do problem solving and things like that. But I wasn't really good at applying those things. So it wasn't really until I got out into the work environment that I was able to take what I learned in college and apply it to my job and those skills. So, that's kind of an example of how skills is just the application of knowledge. I'll give you a few examples of kind of some things that I've come across of where attitude has been, that real key to success. In my job many years ago, I had been kind of working in sales, and then I took on kind of a tech service role. And then they asked me to be a quality manager for a production plant. Well, I'd never been a quality manager before. And I was like, okay, I said, this is interesting. I appreciate it, but, I don't know anything about being a quality manager. And they said, well, Shawn, you've got these certain skills, but, what it takes to learn to be a quality manager, you really have that attitude that you're going to go out and you're going to figure it out. And we'll do what we can to help you and to teach you. Another example I had is I had a woman I used to work with who got laid off recently for a job she was in. And she was going through an interview process, and I was one of her references. And she was going and talking with a company that was totally different from anything she had done. She had been a production planner before, and this was working for an insurance agency. And I was talking with the hiring manager, the guy who owned the insurance business, And he said, well, what do you think is going to make her successful in this job? And I said, it's really going to be her attitude. I said, she's one of these people that you can give her something and she's going to figure it out. I said, I've done that in the past when we used to work together. I said, I knew that, if I could give her a problem, that she had a great attitude, that she was going to go out and try and figure out or gather the knowledge in order to solve that problem. And then my third example is several years ago, I was hiring an engineering manager for my facility. And I had a very interesting candidate that if you looked at the person on paper, they probably didn't have all of the skills necessarily that we would like to have as an engineering manager. In fact, he'd never been an engineering manager before. But as I looked at him and I had my interviews with him, the guy had a great attitude. He's definitely about the people and trying to teach the people and, about leadership and things like that. And that was important to me. And I knew that I could work with him on some of the management skills, but his attitude was really the one thing that I looked at and said, yeah, this is great. And this is what I want to have within my company. So one of the things I challenge everybody to think about is that, we spend so much time when we're doing hiring and we put together these big job descriptions, and it's got all these things that we want from skills and knowledge, and is that really the most important thing that we need? Is it that they have it, or is it just that that's easy for us to be able to say, yeah, okay, they've done this job before. But when the Carnegie Foundation tells us really success is less about the knowledge and the skills and more about the attitude. So I always go back to people and challenge them when they're doing hiring. Think about it a little bit differently. Is it most important for them to check all the boxes with respect to your skills, or is it more important to really understand what their attitude is? So right now we're going to break into some small groups. Daniel is going to just break everybody into groups of 3. And excuse me, you're going to get together and, based on what we just talked about, answer these 2 questions. How can I use this information in my work or my life? And what do I commit to do differently now? In the coaching world, we're all about incremental improvement. And so as I work with my clients, it's always about, okay, what did we talk about? What did we learn today? And what are we going to do today? What are we going to do, commit to today to do differently in order to be better? And that's what I'm going to ask you to do as well. So Daniel's going to break us into the groups. That document that he put into the chat is the document that's going to have the same questions as what you see here. So we're going to give you 7 minutes to talk in groups of 3, and then we're going to get back together.
Daniel, just hold tight. I want to make sure that everyone has that document. I posted it earlier. It's giving me a hard time because I want to resend it. Just one moment, y'all. Let me pause this recording. All right, let her rip, Shawn.
Here we go. All right. So are we back to my slide? Can we see that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So hopefully everybody had some opportunity to share with others. Keep that information. We're going to come back to it at the end of our discussion and ask, what did you learn and what did you commit to do differently for the future? But what we're going to do next is we're going to get into another topic. Here we go. It's called the 3 I's in business. So as business leaders, business owners, we're all sitting there, figuring out that we got way too much to do and we don't know how to deal with it. So what we need to try and figure out is, how do we manage that? How do we figure out what's most important for us to do? I mean, our inboxes are full, our tasks are piling up. We got customer issues, we got employee issues, we got product issues, process issues. There's never enough time in the day in order to deal with them. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can work on that. Because we've got so much that we're focusing on, we find that we're spending too much time in the weeds. We're focusing on those unimportant tasks rather than the important tasks. We're nitpicking. We're worrying about the details. And as owners and business leaders, we feel like we have to be on top of everything, but sometimes we don't feel like we're on top of anything. So, what would really happen if you stopped? If you stopped worrying about knowing every detail of what's happening within your business? What if you let go? You gave up some of the control to other people. Uh, I mean, it could be scary, right? If you gave that control to someone else. It can lead to fear. It could be fear of the unknown, fear of stopping what you've been doing for so many years, fear of losing control, fear of not knowing every little detail about what's happening in your business. And, how can the buck stop here if you don't account for every buck? But at the end of the day, there's good news. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to take on everything. And as a leader within your company, it's not your job necessarily to know everything that's going on. So it's really important to focus on what's important for you and the role that you're in and the job that you have. Make sure that you clear things off your plate so that you can allow more time for doing the most crucial work for what you've been hired for. What gives you that ability, that right, that luxury to say no and only focus on the more important things? At the end of the day, you've got resources at your disposal. That can be human capital with your team, your employees, your vendors, your contractors. There's a lot of people out there nowadays that are willing to offer help, and you don't have to hire someone as a W-2 employee. And I'd have to say, in the last 10 years, one of the things that I've gotten better at is understanding that I didn't have to have all the knowledge and skills in-house in my business in order to be able to use it. There's so many people out there today that are fractional workers or part-time workers or project workers that you don't have to hire someone full-time as a W-2 employee in order to be successful. So as that business owner, you can still achieve that success, but not necessarily having to hire that individual in order to bring that skill to your group. So today we're talking about the 3 eyes of the business owner. And this concept was introduced by Michael Gerber, who's a business author and consultant, in his book called The E-Myth Revisited. And that's going to be the basis of the rest of our discussion today. And so, in a nutshell, what we're going to talk about is the importance and the how-to of working on what's important for you and your level of the organization. So the 3 eyes really explores where you are in that organization and what eyes that you see the business as. So the entrepreneur could be the owner of the business, a manager can be someone that's kind of that mid-level person within the business, and the technician is really the person that is kind of engraved in the day-to-day task of that business. But I'd also kind of like to expand that definition a little bit more and not saying just what are you within the business or the company that you're in today, but think about it as, the business of me. I am my business, and what am I looking at as far as I own my business? I am Shawn Cheesman, and this is the work that I do, whether it's for myself or for another company. But as Shawn Cheesman Inc., I'm the owner of my business, and I have the ability to make the direction of where I'm going to go within my company and my business. So just kind of think about this in a little bit broader sense, that it could be where you are in your business or where you think that you are for yourself in managing yourself as your own business. So the next few slides, I want you to kind of picture an island in the sea. The island is really the ultimate goal of the business and where you want the business to go in a certain number of years. It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. And as we look at the entrepreneur, that entrepreneur is really focused on the island in front of the boat. They're looking out to the future. They're thinking about, how am I going to get there? What's the vision of the company? What does it mean to arrive there? And where am I going to go next? They may be asking questions such as, what if? Or how could I? The manager's eyes are typically that mid-level person in the company, and a lot of times they're focused on the past in order to improve the future. So they maybe say it's a sales manager, and they're looking at it and say, did I achieve my sales goal for the month? And if I didn't, what do I need to do differently in order to be able to achieve it next month? So they're looking at last month's results in order to make adjustments in order to meet their goal for the coming month. So this manager is kind of looking at the past in order to improve the future. In the island metaphor, the manager is going to be looking at the path that's been taken. How could that path be altered in the future for a smoother ride? How could it make the journey more successful and efficient as possible? That manager may be evaluating processes, systems, products, or people. And they may be asking questions like, how could we have, or what happened when we did such and such? The technician, on the other hand, is really the person that's in the weeds. And the boat analogy, they're on the oars, they got their head down, they're just trying to get through the day, and they're very task oriented. In the island metaphor, the technician is the one that's rowing the boat. They're really doing the grunt work, definitely important activities, definitely value-added activities, but not the most highly value activities. So if we look at the boat again and use that analogy, the entrepreneur is going to be the one that's kind of in the front of the boat, and they're going to be providing the direction for the boat, for your business. The manager is going to be the one that's going to be sitting in the back of the boat and monitoring the progress. And the technician's the one that's actually rowing the boat. So you have that sheet again as far as the application exercise. And what I want you to do is just take 2 minutes on your own. We're not going to go into breakout rooms, and fill in the top of that application. And so I'm going to show you. It says, where do I currently spend most of my time in my business? So thinking about your role today in your business, are you spending 10% in the entrepreneur role, the 20% in the manager, 98% in the technician? What? Just write that down, pick a couple minutes, and then we'll move on. All right, so hold on to that. We're going to come back to it in a minute. Okay. We can still see my slides. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as we think about our roles within our business, we need to practice the 80-20 rule. Where can I get the most bang for my buck? What was I hired for? And am I spending 80% of my time doing really what I was hired for? So let's think about this in terms of dollars and cents. And I'm going to throw some numbers up here, and these may make sense. They may be off from what you're doing today. But think about the entrepreneur, that business owner, and what might they pay themselves? Well, $75 an hour equates to about $150,000 a year. A manager at $45 an hour is about $90,000 a year, and a technician at $20 an hour is about $40,000 a year. So if you start to think about this and where are you spending your time, would you spend your time, if you're the entrepreneur, doing technician activities? I'll let anybody answer for me.
I would not want to, but I do.
Yeah. And why don't we want to? I mean, my time is worth $75 an hour, but I'm doing activities that I could pay someone $20 an hour for. So that's another way to kind of look at where am I spending my time and what is the value of that. So as an entrepreneur or a manager, how much time are you spending doing technician type activities? And should you be paying someone $20 an hour versus you at 75 or $40 an hour doing it? Can you delegate it to someone else? Can you hire someone else? And it's all back to using those resources efficiently and effectively. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get into another breakout group. So again, if you look at that activity exercise that we sent, that you downloaded, answer these questions when you get into your groups. What is your current rate in your company? Where should you be spending most of your time in your business? What activities am I doing today that are below my rate? And what do I commit to do differently now? So these are some tough questions, but groups of 3 for about 7 minutes for you to kind of discuss. And then we'll get back together and we'll share some of our lessons learned. Daniel, you want to break everybody up for 7 minutes?
Yes, sir. We're doing that right now, and I will see y'all in 7. Make sure you accept your room invites. Shawn, I owe you an apology.
You do?
Pause this. Well, yeah, I was on mute. You were asking a question, and I was answering it, but you can hear me.
Welcome back. Ready to see everybody back again. We got just a couple minutes to wrap up. We should be pretty close on our time.
Are you recording again?
Yes, thank you, Helen.
You're welcome.
So at the end of the discussion, I think the big takeaway from all this is really understanding where you are within the organization and where you should be working and not getting pulled down into the weeds and into the minutia. Don't be doing things that are below your pay grade and not a good use of your time. So as a business owner, I might be at that 10,000 foot level, thinking about the future and the vision of the company, hiring a good team and the people around you, and evaluating, what are your dashboards. That manager is a person that's saying, what are our goals? What are our KPIs? How are we performing? What can we do to adjust? But making sure that, you are spending the time that you should be on what you were hired to do. And if you are spending too much time at a lower grade than what you should be doing, then figuring out of how can I offload some of that to someone else. So you wrote it down. I want everybody to kind of speak up here, thinking back at what we learned with the Carnegie Triangle and what we 3 I's. Would someone be willing to share, what you wrote down, what action that you're going to take immediately as a result of the discussions that we've had here today? Please just speak up.
This is Bill. I'll share. In our last breakout, what I noticed was I never really tracked what buckets I'm working in and how many hours I'm spending in those buckets. So like when I taking a week and actually, have an Excel spreadsheet and write hours and what bucket am I working in to see how much time am I spending in those categories and what actions am I taking. And if I can add those up, if I'm doing 3 hours in QuickBooks, is it cheaper to hire somebody to do that work versus me do it and have me in the manager bucket spending only 2 hours to cover the 6 hours worth of work that person's doing, and I make more that way.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing, Bill. Anybody else want to share? Bill's the brave one.
Hi, I can share like
Please.
yeah, so I run an accounting and bookkeeping business here in Seattle, Washington, and
Hey, Bill, here's the person right now that can help
I
you.
know, Bill, you need me. Yeah, definitely get in touch. Yeah, so I do accounting and bookkeeping. And so I started my business just last year in October. And so for me, going into the three buckets, which I mean, right now I have no one. I'm the sole owner, I'm the entrepreneur, I'm the manager, and I'm the technician. So for me, most of my time goes in the technician role because I'm the one who's doing the bookkeeping for different businesses. So right now, I do realize that, I mean, for me, when I started, I just look at the price point and I said, oh my God, I cannot hire right now. I need to attract more clients to make the decision to be more entrepreneur. I do spend time, like maybe like 20% being an entrepreneur and then a manager, and but like 60% goes into the technician role, right? So
Yep.
yeah. So I mean, looking at your slides and getting the feedbacks from the groups, I do realize that we need to, like in my last group, he said there was a coach who said like, you don't, sometimes you need to look at the profitability and the speed in which you hire someone, and then how that person can help you boost your revenue, rather than you spending more time in doing the technician role rather than doing the entrepreneur. So he did give us a good point in there.
And as entrepreneurs and starting a new business, we all have probably worn all the hats when we started out our business. And the idea is figuring out when I can start to move some of those roles to others so I can spend more of my time. Like for you, you probably need to spend time in order to develop relationships and developing new clients to bring in as well. And is that what you should be spending your time on? So great feedback. All right, we need to wrap up here, but I always look for feedback, and Daniel has put in the chat box a feedback form. If you could please download that, fill it in and email it to me, I would appreciate it. I always like to know what you think about the presentations. I enjoy doing them. If there's things that you can suggest that I could do differently, that's great. And if you're interested in learning more or talking to me about what I do with business coaching, put your name and number and stuff like that on there. If you're just going to give me ratings, you don't have to put your contact info. But if you want me to reach out to you, please put your contact information in there as well. And that's what I've got. Thanks, everybody. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you got some value out of our discussion today. And once again, coaching is all about incremental change. So take those ideas, those commitments. What am I going to do differently today based off of what I've learned?
All right.
Any last questions before we sign off?
Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. Well, thank you, Shawn. This was great. And we do encourage all of you to come back to Network in Action for our speaker series on the first, third, and first Wednesday of every month. On the first, we're going to be having our network with the nations. So do take part in that. It's a great way to meet other business owners from all across the world. We break you off into breakout rooms with some thought-provoking questions to get you to know, like, and trust one another. It's really time well spent. Always fruitful discussions are being made. Then on the third Thursday of the month, we have our sales mastery. So do check in. We're going to be announcing next month's relatively soon. And the fourth Wednesday, of course, we have our speaker series. So do check back there. We look forward to having you all next time and have a great day. Once again, thank you, Shawn. This was great.